Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mahmoud Ramdan from Shedvi Bishti University. The effect of ischemic tolerance caused by injection miRNA-92 on neurological defects in the rat model of stroke. This work by Muhammad Reza Bigdali, Sanaz Nasuhi, Salma Ahmedlou. Stroke is one of the most common diseases and the main cause of physical disability in adults. This complication is the result of impaired blood supply to part of the brain tissue. Stroke is the second leading cause of death after cancer and heart disease. Epidemiology number of the people suffering from stroke each year over 2 million people in the world. In the case of Iran, according to research, out of every 100,000 people, 43 suffer from stroke. Medical economics, this disease imposes many financial and psychological costs on the families of patients because this disease leads to long-term physical disability. In the United States, the annual cost is about 5.36 billion dollars, which includes healthcare service for lost work days and service needed to regain capacity. There are several factors involved in causing strokes that are generally divided into categories. Modifiable factors include obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, smoking, and immutable factors included history, gender, race, age. Ischemic stroke, about 87% of all stroke occur. It is caused by a decrease in cerebral blood flow which lasts for more than a few seconds. Major causes of ischemic stroke, thrombosis and embolism. Turns to ischemic. Cerebral ischemia is associated with a variety of disorders in people at risk for cerebral ischemia, including sickle cell anemia, aneurysm, and patients with a history of a heart attack. For example, there are two common treatments for aneurysm includes surgical clamping and endovascular cooling. Both methods pose potential risk, especially cerebral hemorrhage or loss of blood flow to the brain. Coronavirus, we heard for this year and the last year that coronavirus cause ischemic stroke or infection in the heart because coronavirus make like a anemia. Because coronavirus anemia blocking the blood because coronavirus anemia blocking the blood flow, and in the results we see ischemic in the brain or in heart or in a lungs. strong treatment tissue, TPA is still the only treatment. Therefore, only 5 to 10% of patients with ischemic stroke can use it due to time and side effect. TPA we can use it only for 3 or 4.5 hours after a stroke. For this, the doctors and researcher going about a new treatment for stroke. From this treatment, we use miRNA. miRNA as are a group of short single-stranded between 90 to 23 nucleotides and non-coding. In miRNA regulators of gene expression, and we see it in animal and planets and virus. Andrew and Craig have the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2006 because he discovered this small RNA and seen the important roles of this miRNA for treatment. miRNA and ischemic stroke, several groups demonstrated the involvement of miRNA in the pathogenesis of ischemic brain injury using miRNA profiling technique in the midbrain occlusion model MCO. The first report on the potential importance of miRNA in stroke pathology was published in 2007. Here we can see the importance of miRNA for ischemic stroke. For example, LET7 inhibition of LET7 protect the nerve in a model of rats ischemic stroke. Overexpression of miRNA 21 protects neuron from ischemic death in vitro, and many examples of this miRNA. Why miRNA? Because miRNA can play have a possible mechanism for the treatment of stroke. For example, miRNA can neurogenesis or neuroprotection or angiogenesis for stroke. miRNA-92 protected cluster of miRNA 17, 80A, 90A, 20A, 90B1, and 92A show high regulation in tumor, overexpression in tumor cells, tumor angiogenesis, play an important role for myocardial infarction. For stroke, the only study that explained the role of miRNA 92 in ischemic stroke, but vacantly and completely was done by Hang. Hang used isoflavones and extracts in macular fruit, protects against nerve cell death in ischemic injury by inducing miRNA 25, miRNA 92A, and miRNA 146A by targeting NOX4. The purpose of this research, we use agomir and antagomir miRNA 92A 24-hour pre-treatment. After 24 hours, we use MCO. After 24 hours of MCO, infarct volume and neurological defect score were using. Animal and keeping condition: adult male vested rats weighing between 20 uh, to 200 250 and 350 gram were for purchased from for pasture research and production complex in Iran under standard condition 22 Celsius to 12-hour light and dark cycle. We put the rats in 4 group: sham group, control group, the agomir group, and antagomir group. Stereotactic surgery: agomir and antagomir miRNA-92 were injected into the right striatum according to the coordinates of Vaccinos Atlas. Agomir and antagomir 92A, we are buy it from Chin Pharma. We use 5 microliter of agomir with 2 microliter of lipofectamine, and we inject it into the right striatum of brain rat with Hamilton for 20 minutes. Method of creating MCO stroke model: 2 cent insection on the neck, find common carotid arteries, internal and external carotid, is isolation of the vagus nerve from the carotid, and a closure of common and external carotid, temporary closure of the internal carotid by the clamps, make small incision before the 2 branches of the common carotid artery past 0.3 nylon sutures to reach MCA. After 1 hour, remove the 3. Neurological defects score: rise the tail, motor function, sensory function, BM test, reflex activity. Infrared volume: rats were killed with high dose of chlorozotes, and their brain were removed and kept in cold saline at 4 Celsius refrigerator for 10 minutes. Brain was perforated from the frontal to the temporal side using a brain matrix in the coronal section with a thickness of 2 millimeters. 2% solution of TTC is poured on the insection. The insection were incubator for 15 minutes on 37 Celsius for steaming. Data analyze: we using SPSS for neurological defect score. We use Kruskal Wallis parametric and done post hoc test. For infrared volume, we use MAG software, and after that 1-way ANOVA and Poniferini post hoc. Results: infrared volume we see here: sham, control MCO, agomir, and antagomir. We see it here: antagomir compared to agomir and control. The infrared volume is very loss and inhibition. We see here total infrared volume, cortex infrared volume, amygdala, and striatum. We see here antagomir group is significant compared to control. For neurological defect score, we see here for sham and antagomer is significant compared to control. Here just sham for raise the tail, for motor function just for sham significant, sensor function for sham and antagomer, BM test sham and antagomer, reflex activity sham and antagomer. Is a table for sham, control, agomer, antagomer. We see here 44 control, 34 agomer و 84 antagomer. We see here is significant compared to control group. Conclusion: for the first time, the present results indicate that injection of antagomer 92 before ischemic induction resulted in a significant reduction in NDS and IV in comparison with the agomer and control group. Our study showed that antagomer 92A can protect neural cell agents and of cerebral ischemia. It seemed that antagomer 92A due to exert detrimental effect on ischemic damage. Thank you for your attention.